Oscar Piastri continues to fight back against Lando Norris for the F1 Championship. After taking 6 points out of Norris's lead this morning, he sticks it on pole for the big race tomorrow in Shanghai. Let's have a look at the qualifying results and what it could mean for tomorrow's race. Oscar Piastri P1, Lando Norris P3. Piastri did what he needed to do. He got a big result in. I think he looked the more confident of the drivers all weekend. I think Norris had a couple of really good sectors that maybe made him look like the favourite. In Q2, I mean, what was it, nearly half a second or something ahead of Piastri and the rest of the field. But Piastri did it when it mattered in Q3. Norris, I think where we're disappointed he's not sharing the front row with him. 10th and a half behind Piastri, but within a tenth of Russell. I think it was really close between them. But Norris knows what he needs to do tomorrow to keep the championship in his favour, even at this very early stage. And Piastri will hope that Russell can hold Norris up. I think it's going to be a great and interesting duel between them tomorrow. They'll definitely both be fighting over who's going to get the preferential pit stops. Even if Piastri's ahead, I know Norris is going to be fighting for that undercut every situation, vice versa. No matter what happens, they're going to be fighting. And I think it's all been a bit civilised so far. And I think today it could come a bit higher up, come a bit more to the boil. We're nowhere near the boil yet, but we're turning the kettle on this morning. And I think we're going to get an exciting start to the championship today. George Russell P2, but Kimi Antonelli down in P8. Russell, again, yeah, a great lap from him. Definitely put himself in there in the mix for a potential race win. McLaren's look like they've got the better race tyre, but could he benefit from all the squabbling between them? I think that's what he'll be looking for tomorrow. I think that's what he'll be hoping for. Out-qualifies Verstappen as well, both Ferraris, but he's a bit by himself because Kimi Antonelli didn't get into that top 6 or 7. Out-qualified by Isaac Hadjar in P7. Brilliant lap from him. I think Antonelli will be kicking himself, really. He keeps having these small little mistakes on his quick laps that I think are just letting him down. And I think he can pull them together. I think he can get to that upper echelon pace, that top 3-4 pace. And I think he will be fighting for podiums at some point. He still looks a bit raw. But yeah, Russell's going to be up there fighting against the McLarens. Hopefully not by himself. I think he's going to get a bit of help from a driver for the next team. Verstappen P4, but Liam Lawson all the way down in P20. I think Verstappen will feel a bit unfortunate with what happened. I think, only 2 tenths off pole. I think he'd have thought that he could have maybe stolen it today. The car definitely looks good when he's driving it. Lawson, I don't know what's going on with him. He looks all over the place. The car looks difficult to drive. He's shaking when he's trying to get it around a corner. He's going backwards or forwards with it. The balance just doesn't look quite right with him. And I think it's the same situation for what it is for most of the other second Red Bull drivers. I don't think he's just there for that car. I don't think it's just made for him. I'm not saying it is definitely made for Verstappen, but it doesn't look like he's become one with the car quite yet. Hopefully he can improve on that. But Lawson all the way down in P20, another terrible qualifying performance for him, and it leaves Verstappen completely vulnerable in P4. I think there might be an unofficial friendship between Russell and Verstappen in this race to try and help each other fight the McLarens together. However, it could end up being that they're fighting each other for P3 in the podium. So we'll have to see how that ends up between them. Hopefully they work together and can try and stick it to the McLarens, keep it an interesting race, keep the fight on. But I think it might just end up being Verstappen versus Russell for P3. Ferrari with Hamilton in P5 and Charles Leclerc in P6. I think it was a bit disappointing for the team. At least 2 tenths off pole after great pace shown yesterday, and definitely by Hamilton in the sprint race this morning. I think they've been hoping that they could maybe recreate that performance again. Really disappointing for them from that sort of perspective. However, P5 and P6, I think if you just spoke to them a couple of days ago, they've probably been really happy with that performance. So, it is circuit to circuit. The cars will get better or get worse. I think in this scenario, Ferrari have to take advantage of the weekend where they sort of seem to have their car set up quite well. I think Hamilton said that a couple of the changes they made hadn't really worked. And I think everyone would have made changes going into this session. You know, I don't think he could have just kept it the same and expected that they would have still been up front. I think they had to make changes just to try and keep ahead of people. You know, other people would have been using the session to get data, especially those further down the field. But yeah, I think a disappointing performance for Ferrari, but hopefully they can move up. I think podium definitely on the cards for them. Racing Bulls with Hajar in P7 and Sonoda in P9. I don't know what's happened to the car, to be honest. It looks incredible. They really look like they've got everything lined up. They look exactly what we thought Williams and Alpine would be before the season began. Of that car that just is in the mix every single qualifying session. They have one of them in the mix. Hajar's putting the performance in that shows he does deserve to be in F1. It shows that last week is behind him, at least part of it, but maybe it's also driving him forwards. And I think it's a great little comeback for him this last week. You know, did an okay qualifying session yesterday, did okay in the race, got a couple of positions. P7, well up there, definitely on for points. And for Yuki Tsunoda as well in P9. Both of them were well in for points. You know, not too far from the rest of the field. I mean, within half a tenth, I think, of the Ferraris was Hajar's time. So well up there, definitely in with a shout. I'm hoping with a bit of excitement, a bit of a scramble, you know, there can be safety cars down to that big braking zone. Also into turn one, there can be crashes up there. Hopefully, not that hopefully there's crashes, but hopefully they could take advantage and get a racing ball right up near the front of the field. Williams with Albon in P10 and Carlos Sainz in P15. It's a weird one, this one, because Albon just squeezed through to P10 and you could tell by the reaction he was so excited with that. Really good result for Williams. You know, they looked here or there this weekend. That's a good result for them, gives them a good platform to build off. If they've got the race pace over the Racing Bulls, which the Racing Bulls are looking difficult to pass, so Noda's been able to keep people behind. They're looking difficult to pass, but if Williams have a decent race pace, Albon could be on for some good points. Just squeak through into Q3. But Carlos Sainz, again, really, 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 really disappointing. Down in, I've put P19, but P15, you know, just squeezed through into Q2. Well, he didn't just squeeze through into Q2. He was well into Q2, and his Q2 time was so bad compared to a Q1 time. In Q1, he would have been, I think, 11th or 12th in Q2. And then he somehow just had a massive drop off where I think he's just making small mistakes again. You know, it almost looks like it is a rookie driving the car with Sainz at the moment. It's almost like he's having to go back to basics, having to take a step back, make a small mistake, small tweaks. You know, the problem last weekend with the torque kick that he had wasn't in his fault, but I do wonder if there is just something in the back of his mind that's not quite right with him in the car at the moment. Hopefully he can kick it into gear, start improving, but yeah, not P19, P15, disappointing for Carlos Sainz. Haas with Ocon in P11 and Behrman in P17. Ocon needs to try and get points from this position for Haas. They need something to be positive about and look forward to after this first couple of weekends. You know, they'd have thought to be right up there. They'd probably thought they'd already had a few points by now. They want to be right up there. P11, I think he can have the impetus to move forwards. You know, the Williams have looked a bit iffy. The Racing Bulls, you know, changeable conditions last weekend. They look like they've got good race pace, but we're not really sure what Haas can do. You know, last weekend, if that was indicative of what the Haas can do, it's not going to look good for Ocon, and we should see him fall down the order pretty quickly. I'm hopeful that he can build on that P11, move forwards, and look better. Behrman, P17, you know, don't want to put it down to this, but rookie qualifying performance, you know, not everything's going to be great. He's not always going to out-qualify Ocon and look amazing. And that was just one of them laps that wasn't really hooked together. And he was unfortunately out. It happens sometimes, but I think he's got a great position to try and get something from the race. I don't think he's going to get points, but hopefully just try and keep on the lead lap, keep it out the walls, keep learning, and try and get a better race in than last week. I think Haas will be okay with that. Aston Martin with Alonso in P13 and Stroll in P14. sort of looked like they could get out of the car really in that session. I don't think they're higher than they maybe should be. I don't think they're any lower than they really should be. I think the P13 and 14, 6th to 7th best car in the grid sort of area, probably sounds about right after 2 races in the season from what we've seen with the practice sessions so far and the race sessions we've seen. They look about that sort of pace. They don't look super special. I don't really think they're going to move forwards, but I don't really think they're going to move backwards. I think Alonso's just going to probably hold someone like Sainz up for the entire race like he likes to do. And I think, it might just be another case of a weekend for them to get some learning and maybe get some data from the car. I'd love to say about every single team that they're going to move forwards, but I just don't think that Aston Martin quite have it. Okay performance, nothing too special, not great. Hopefully they can do well. Alpine. Gasly P16 and Doohan P18. Oh, I don't know what to say about the Alpines. They just don't look like they've got anything in the tank really. They just look really quite slow, quite difficult to drive as well. I think Doohan's lunged down to the last turn, second to last turn, sorry, in the sprint race. I might have been out of frustration more than anything because I just don't think that they're really looking like a high quality car, a midfield car like they should be. I think the 2-3 laps I think I actually had in the end to try and get it, and just nothing giving. Less than a tenth between it, so the midfield battle is still close, but the fine margins matter. And if last weekend was bad with them dropping points to the midfield battle, this weekend is horrific for Alpine, with Racing Balls right up there, Tsunoda getting points, Williams have a chance of Albon of getting more points. Even Aston Martin, Ocon with Haas could get points. Really looking not great for Alpine at the moment. What looked like a promising season in testing really is not turning out well. Sauber with Bortoleto and P19, but Hulkenberg and P12. I think Hulkenberg will be a bit unhappy he didn't make Q3 potentially. Less than 10th in it. I mean, right up there. I don't know where that lap came from, to be honest. They've not shown that sort of pace through 2 races. The only reason they've sort of shown that pace is because of changeable conditions. Hulkenberg took advantage, moved on to the right strategy at the right time. Not for that, I don't really think he was on for points in Melbourne. P12, I mean, everything's to play for. Another good strategy decision. Sauber like to do something different when they're back of the pack. Now they're in the mid-pack. Can they do something different again to try and move Hulkenberg up the field? I'm not too sure. Hopefully the race pace sort of shows itself. Didn't look too like anything amazing earlier in the sprint race, but I'm hopeful that Sauber, I am hopeful for this one that they can move forward to get some more points. Keeps it exciting in that midfield battle, and another team in there is always great. However, I think there is a chance with Aston Martin behind and Williams behind, they could fall backwards and they could end up being P16 and further down between the two of them by the end of the race. Very easily see that happening. And my overall thoughts really, I think that Norris will be up there fighting. I don't think the qualifying performance is necessarily exactly the race order. Norris has definitely looked quicker at times all weekend. That Q2 lap was amazing compared to what anyone else had done. And, it was even quicker than Norris's Q3 lap, that Q2 lap was. So it shows how good of a lap it was if Norris can get it all hooked up. But I think Piastri could just drive away. If Russell doesn't get a good start and get in front of Piastri, I think it could be Piastri's race to lose. Drives away. Russell holds up Norris. That's perfect for Piastri, giving a bit of a gap. I think it could be Russell and Verstappen need to gang up together to work against the McLarens. And I think it could end up being quite an interesting race. If Norris just gets through, it could be McLaren team orders, papaya rules. Nothing too interesting. But yeah, it's all for me. Thank you very much for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.